Hey everyone, Stegar here, and welcome to the 5th episode of my Hunterville series in City Skylines. If you're new to the series, then I'm trying to build a relatively large city. This might take some time though, but yeah, we're currently 5 episodes in, and the focus of today's episode will be mainly on some industrial areas. But right now I'm just building a few high rises kind of on the edge of where the downtown currently stretches to. And I imagine that these ones would have been built relatively recently, like past maybe 10 or 20 years or something. And here I'm just putting a little car park thingy in between it and just having it covered on top so that there can be some green space where people can socialise and things too. And I was using procedural objects here to make the wall above the gap between the other concrete walls because there wasn't really any easy way to do that, and at the time of this I didn't have the wall prop that matched the concrete wall network that I'm using there. And here I'm just starting on this shared space in between the two buildings. I'm putting a basketball court here. I originally wanted to put a tennis court here, but the tennis court decal must be in the European theme, like the vanilla theme, and to save on my asset count for the sake of loading and performance, I had disabled that, so I didn't have access to the tennis court, which was kind of a pain, but I mean, it's always something that I can come back and change at some other time. I'll probably do it off camera someday. But anyways, with this basketball court here, I thought it would, you'd need the basketball hoops to go with it, and also the fence around it just to kind of separate it off, and if someone hits the ball, it's not going to go crashing through someone's apartment window or something. And just some trees and planters and things to fill things up too. I can't remember if it was here, but at some point in this video there's some weird, like, the street lights, because the parking lot roads and things aren't quite low enough, so the street lights were showing through, so I was using the trees and bushes and things to kind of hide those rather than trying to find some other way to do that. And here I was just placing down some kind of lower density buildings relative to those big skyscrapers along what will be the main road. I'll probably kind of explain more about this in a live play at the end of the episode. And here I was just building some repetitive apartment buildings because I imagine that, again, this area would have been built or developed relatively recently, and there's a lot of residential development going on as well. I remember, I think it was 2013, I went to Sydney, and in the part of Sydney that I was staying in, there was a lot of high-rise development going on, and that kind of inspired me for this little bit here. And I'm just now putting in an entrance to an underground car park and covering that up with the ploppable asphalt to kind of hide everything that's going on under there. And here was definitely where the street lights were showing through. This might look a bit weird, but I'm just using these little bushes to cover it up. It makes a really weird shape with like a hole in the middle of it, as you'll see very soon. But I wasn't really sure how else to address this. I mean, I could have left it because at night time they're going to light up anyways, aren't they? So I probably should have just left it and been like, oh, there's a street light here so that people don't get robbed or even worse in the alley or something. And just some dumpsters and things in the back too, for the sake of having somewhere to put your trash. And another basketball court here. I kind of sunk this one or raised it or something to make the decal a lot more kind of faded into the ground, and you can barely notice the blue, and it just looks like the lines are there and they're quite faded. And I kind of wanted to change things up there, not have it like the other one, and also just make it look like it's not so permanent, and maybe just like a temporary thing that someone's gone out with some like spray paint or chalk or something and just done it really quickly. And here I was working on extending the rail line from the central station out into the rail network that I had built on this map when I first built it. And I'm using the railway replacer mod, and since I'm using that and using the nodeless versions of the tracks for that, I had to ensure that the tracks were perfectly lined up, which is what I'm trying to do right now with all the tweaking and repetitive stuff, and also just making the turn. I made this kind of rather gentle turn relative to the smaller one that I'm about to create. I was initially thinking that that would be a new one and that this smaller one would be like an old one that was built a long time ago, but I think it's in the next episode when I do a whole lot of road layouts around here. I changed that so that the railway kind of only used that sharper turn and didn't have the more gentle one, and that sharper turn would only be for passenger rail, so I mean they could go slow for a little bit. I'll go more in depth on that when I get to that, which is either in the next episode or the one after that, I can't remember. I've already recorded those though. And here I'm just working along the train line and put in this parking space along here and just basically trying to work in between this train line and the road. I think I had like 4 tiles depth or 5 tiles depth or something. Yeah, 5. And was just trying to kind of work with that and put buildings in between here. And I think it's about now that, yeah, the white wall that just showed up there, if you notice it at the top of the screen, that is hiding an attempt at episode 6. I didn't really use much of what's behind there, but at this point I had built a good portion of episode 6, or what I thought would be episode 6, after building a different version of the rest of this episode. And I didn't really like that after reflection, so I basically redid about 2/3 of this episode, which annoyed me because it took a lot of time, but I do think the result here was a lot better than what I'd done previously, so I was quite happy with how that all turned out, and it just fit in a lot more with the space, because what I was going to have there and had built in the first time around, it was a lot kind of more spread out, I guess, and lots more open space, which I didn't really think fitted with everything else that's going on so close to the central city. And here I was just putting some smaller buildings and warehouses along to kind of fill up the space, and made this one warehouse kind of stick out to fill in the space, and using the painter mod to make them all the same colour so that it just looks like one warehouse and doesn't look like buildings have been clipped together so much. And more warehouses and stuff, and I'm probably going to leave you with some music for a few minutes now, and I'll be back later to talk about what's going on. So in between the warehouses that I've been placing down, I've also been putting a few stain decals and some tyre marks in places, and here also some cracked decals, just to kind of make the area look a bit rougher and as though it's been worn down over time by various heavy equipment and trucks and things, and also just the fact that industrial places probably wouldn't care that much, as say some brand new hotel would care about how it appears when people first come in. And speaking of hotels, there's actually going to be one in part of where this warehouse is at the moment. I'm just building it out, and then I destroy some of it, and this part of the warehouse would have been destroyed to make way for the hotel, but they left the other part because there's no point in destroying it. And also I add in a car park at the back here, just for, I guess, cars for people coming to the hotel. I mean, some of them might come by taxi, or a lot of cars, a lot of people will come by taxi, a lot of cars will come by taxi. That doesn't make the most sense, does it? And I was just covering up the crossing here too. And in the part of the time-lapse that had music over it, I was also building a Mitre 10. If you're from Australia or New Zealand, you might recognise Mitre 10 as a kind of one of a well-known company in both countries. They're kind of different companies, but it's still a well-known brand in either country. And I was just building that and adding a parking lot out front. And I'm doing this because at the beginning of the series I kind of wanted this city to be loosely based off something to do with New Zealand or Australia or something. It's kind of drifted away from that quite a bit since then, but it's still in the back of my mind. I want to include some well-known businesses in either country, and yeah, was just using Mitre 10 as one of those, and I add some more in one of the coming episodes which I've already recorded. And here I was just adding some prop cars because the parking lot here was all decals, so I couldn't really have the cars park here like they would if I'd used the parking lot roads car parks. The reason why I didn't use the parking lot roads car parks in the first place was that the big parking lot road was too close to the other road, and it was causing the kind of ground to think it was raised up and do a whole lot of weird things with the way that the parking spaces were showing. So I just decided to put decals here, and then later realized that I needed to add cars in as detail too. And I kind of added one at the end on an angle, so that, you know, they might have just slipped in there and not cared too much. I mean, probably not the best driver in the world, but it does happen, and not everyone parks perfectly. So now we're in game, and you can kind of see that the city is starting to take shape with the skyline over here, and it kind of tapers off into some lower density stuff along the edges, with a few hotels dotted around the place and another office building where there's been some development and there will be in the future, but right now they're just there because they're allowed to build there. And there's a building missing down here. I'm not sure what happened. I think it's because I changed collections like an hour ago between Fairview and Hunterville, because I've been working on Fairview recently. And yeah, that can be sorted at some other time. I mean, I've already built a few episodes in advance. I've built 6, 7 and 8 which focus around here, and episode 6 is just working along the other side of this train tracks and stuff. And yeah, down here there's a bit of stuff. I've never really noticed this, but the back of this building doesn't look too great, because I think when I was building it, I kind of just placed that building and was looking down at this angle some way and didn't really take much notice of it. Either that or there's something actually wrong with the model, I'm not sure, because there is this gap here, but I don't really know what's going on. And yeah, just buildings, this brutalist one that I put in, and all these industrial warehouses that I was building in this episode, which I kind of was basing off some things that I'd seen in real life and just kind of going for what I felt like, really. And the train station, I do want to put a underground metro line from the station that kind of comes across to somewhere over here in the downtown, and then it could possibly go over the river somewhere around here too, and also branch off and head off this way, where kind of the metro lines that come off these two tracks, one could go out in this direction and possibly have a branch that goes over the river somewhere else, and another one could head up here and go through the hills here and potentially go to another town over here if I ever get to building it. But yeah, that's basically my plan for the metro. I have built one station in the following episode, in episode 6 that is, but I still haven't really sat down and properly planned out the network, but I do have the idea in my head and a screenshot from well above the city that I could print off and draw on or something, or do something to plan things out. But this I just like little shots looking up at the skyline like this, and there's a whole lot of little hidden details if you get in certain places that probably aren't necessary. Maybe this one is because of the amount of open space that you can see. There's just some seating there and car parks and things. The construction site, which looks good from a certain distance, but once you get up really close it starts to kind of break down to the point where you can see the ends of the metal overlapping and stuff. But it's made to be looked at from a distance. I'm pretty happy overall with how things have turned out, and you know, there's some greenery and things, so I'm kind of paranoid that there's going to be something else wrong now, since there's a building missing here, that something else has gone wrong, but I haven't seemed to notice anything else yet. So next time I'm probably going to head over to Fairview and do an episode or a few episodes on that, since I've already recorded them. So that's it for today. If you've enjoyed the video, leave a like, and if you're new to the channel, then subscribe for more. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.